Is your family tree a mystery? Are you fascinated by genealogy? Well, hip hip hooray, let's talk DNA with Julie.
The truth is in your genes.
In CutOff Genes.
Welcome to CutOff Genes, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA. I'm Julie Dixon Jackson. I'm a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Gen Genie. Richard isn't here, as you know. This is our bonus episode for season 5. Richard is in Wisconsin, working on his musical Love Stings. So I wanted to share with you guys the last part of my conversation with Cynthia from Michigan, and also just give you guys a couple little updates. So first off, in our last episode, I gave a trenches story about listener and client Craig. And it came up that he was in reunion with his biological mother, but he didn't know what his biological father's name was. And Rich asked the question, why wouldn't he have just asked her? And he had told me that I can't ask her. And I said at that point, I think you should. It would help. So he heard that. And I of course, told him, yeah, Craig, do you have a response to that? So he wrote me and said in episode 512, Rich asked a question. My answer. It took some effort to start a relationship with my birth mom. She explained that having lost me once, she couldn't bear to lose me again if all I wanted was health information, then to exit her life again. When we started writing each other, she explained in great detail the circumstances of my conception and my birth. She was fond of and affectionate for my birth father. Being a minor, she was under extreme pressure from her mother to have an abortion. She was under additional pressure to give up the name of my adult birth father. She explained that she never gave up the name of my birth father. At that time, I had all the answers I needed. I had reunited with my mother, and that was all my heart could hold. Very well put. Fast forward a year and a half, and Mom and I decided to take DNA tests. You skillfully identified a half-sibling on my birth father's side. I asked my mom for the name of my birth father, and she immediately provided it. I simply hadn't asked her yet. You came in with the same result. Mom loves me and I love her. We are making up for lost time. The questions and answers take time to develop. We are going from broad strokes towards details. That's a very long answer to a very simple question. Yes, it is, but well put. Thank you so much for that, Craig. What that does is explain how each and every one of our situations are different, and we kind of have to fly by the seat of our pants and hope for the best. And I appreciate that very succinct answer. By the way, I helped Craig write a letter to his biological father, and he actually sent it through Messenger on Facebook, I think. And I was like, okay. And he gave me an update that his father was happy to hear from him and they were going to forge a relationship. So yay. Okay. So that's that. I don't want to talk about, I don't want to make jokes about things today, just because of what happened so much in the last week. I'm still reeling, as I'm sure you guys are too. And it just doesn't seem like an appropriate time. I did have one thing I wanted to add that I found out. Now, I'm giggling, and I said I didn't want to do that. But I thought this was such an interesting statistic that I found out, and it's 100% true. So, of serial killers, there is I guess, confirmed serial killers in the U.S. I believe the statistic is that 16% were adopted. And I think that's pretty significant. And some of those are Joel Rifkin, Ted Bundy, Kenneth Bianchi, Tommy Lynn Sells, Charles Albright, a lot of them. So there's that. Most of the ones that we know were adopted. The second statistic that I had to look up to make sure it was true is that of the confirmed female serial killers, of which I believe there are 35, 100% of them were adopted. Just let that sink in. So, I would much rather get into a conversation with Richard about this because I'm just talking to the air right now. But wow, what a fascinating statistic. And I think it says so much about what adoptees go through. And I'm certainly not saying we should kill people. Our brains are altered, I think, by our trauma. And that is something to think about. Here is part 3 of my conversation with Cynthia from Michigan. Wow, it's such an amazing story, and every corner we turn, there's a surprise. So I hope you guys enjoy part 3. Thank you again, Cynthia, for having this conversation and sharing this information with me. Let's have a listen.
I reached over, I handed her my phone, and I said, so I'm Middle Eastern. And my mom stared at that phone and stared at that phone, and she said these words in a different tone of voice than my mother has ever used in my presence. She said, I always wondered.
Well, kudos to her for doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm looking at her. I had this set up like it was a PowerPoint on my phone, these certain things I was going to show her. Right. So I showed a picture of him and I said, is this Tony? And she said, it is. He was a nice man. He was such a nice man. He was a nice man. Nice. I said, well, how did you meet? So there she was. She's telling me all of this. I'm watching the door of this place, waiting for my dad and my husband to come back out. And apparently they couldn't find the part. Thank goodness. So they were in there for about 10 or 15 minutes. So that's the biggest conversation I've had with my mom about all of this. But so she explained that she was working downtown in the community where she had moved to after high school with, where she lived with her parents. And she was sitting alone at a diner. And a young, handsome man walked up and said, is anyone sitting here? And she said, no. And he said, may I? And she said, yes. And they had a good lunch together and they struck up a friendship. They exchanged phone numbers and they dated for 6 to 8 months.
Oh, wow.
But he never met my grandparents.
Huh. So they had a full relationship.
So remember, this is the early 60s. And it's just hard to even say these words, but it was the early 60s and people were judged by their skin color in a major, major way. Mm-hmm. And it breaks my heart that my mom made a decision, being that I honestly believe she knew she was pregnant and broke off with him. Mm. But I think that's why she never brought him around my grandparents.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that certainly makes sense.
And because if he had ever been with my, if he had ever been introduced to my grandparents, then my grandparents would not have just had one man to point me to for thinking he was my biological father.
Right.
So now let's double back to when that old boyfriend from high school, or the high school crush, came to her town. Mm-hmm. His side of the story is this. He called and said he was coming to the town. And she said, oh, I was going to go out with Tony tonight. I'm going to break that engagement to go out with Tony, and I'll be here when you get here. We can have dinner.
Oh, wow. So he'd heard the name Tony?
Yep.
Wow. So it was all calculated.
It was totally calculated. Wow. And what wasn't calculated was the old boyfriend, the old crush, coming into town. But boy, she took advantage of that. Yep. In every way.
She's like, well, here's my out.
Here's my out.
Wow.
Yep.
Huh. So have you talked to her about this since?
I've talked to her a few times.
Okay.
We currently are not talking.
Okay.
Though, because as generous with information as she was, that first 15-minute conversation about, mm-hmm. He was so nice. These are some of the things we went together. I know he was also still kind of sort of dating so-and-so who he actually ended up marrying. She said she knew he got married when she was like 5 months pregnant. She knew where, what community he lived in. She had, quote unquote, kept tabs on him, but had never communicated with him, she said.
Right.
So when I'm born, and she and I have had this conversation a number of times, that my baby picture doesn't look anything like the baby picture of any of my siblings. Some of our coloring is the same, but I am a little bit darker. I do look a little bit different than they do. But in my pictures, I look like a not white baby.
Oh, do you?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Like she could have taken, anybody in the room could have taken a look at me and
Did you have a
known
crap load of hair?
a ton. Funny about that, and I never imagined I would be talking out loud to people other than my own two children about this, but I am not super hairy. I do have fairer skin, and any hair I have is always, like, even on my arms, I have some very light, fine blonde hairs. But my siblings growing up and my mother have absolutely, my female siblings have no have absolutely no hair on their arms.
Oh, wow.
I got into just so much trouble when I was about 10 years old. I shaved my arms.
Of course you did.
Oh. And my mom just had a fit, but here she's dealing. So that was another moment. Every time we looked at the baby picture, and I would say, well, this doesn't look like I'm, this color. It looks like I'm like a dark skinned person. Mom, why? Are you sure this is my baby picture? Yeah. It was just a bad photo that day. Like the lighting.
The lighting. The lighting in that crib, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Everybody born in that hospital looks like that. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. So, any one of those conversations could have been a time when she could have said, look, here's what you need to know. When I was pregnant with my first child or with my second child, she could have told me. Every time when she gave me my big photo album, she could have told me. When I shaved my little arms, she could have said, look, you actually are Middle Eastern. And so, you might have genes a little different than mine. You're not just 100% mine.
Right. Yeah. That's that. And in hindsight, you can see there are so many opportunities that should have been taken. And you wonder what was happening in their mind at that moment, whether or not they were trying to decide whether or not it was worth it.
Yeah, it is. But the conversation that we had, though, in June of 2020, it was good. It was, she was honest. She gave me some information. I knew that it wasn't like, she's not an outgoing person. She's crazy shy.
Yeah.
She, all about herself and da 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 da. And so I could not imagine her like dating, 7 different people. I'm shocked that she dated 2 different guys.
Right.
And I'm that the second dude was a date. She just ran off with him to baby off on him.
Right. Huh. That first 15 minutes is such a blessing because that was the best. Yep. You handled it perfectly because her guard was down and she was like stranded there.
Yep.
She couldn't go anywhere and she knew that this was the moment, and it wasn't until she started processing it that her fight or flight kicked in again.
Yep. Absolutely, exactly. But she gave me a good bit of information, and I just felt so good about that conversation. As soon as we got home, I ordered a journal, a beautiful leather-bound journal with a tree of life on it, and I sent her a card separately, and then I had that delivered, and just wrote in there that I appreciate you more than you will ever know about telling me the truth and how much it means to me. And that, I've got something, on its way to you. It should be here in a few days. And I would appreciate it if you would just write down any memories you have, anything in the world that you can think of. It might be incredibly minute, but it would be very valuable to me.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it is good.
Yeah.
Except it was a total fail.
It didn't work.
No.
Because that's a really good tack to take. There are so many times I want to pick up the phone and call my biological mother and just say, you know what, can you just tell me a story? Tell me something that, from the time that you were pregnant that you've never, you know what I mean? Everything that she's ever told me is very surface and matter of fact, but there are no real deep anything.
Yeah, same. It's been very disappointing in regard to that, but we had a lot of good conversations anyway. She, she's not into journaling, and possibly, here's my thought. She maybe doesn't want there to be any written proof of anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't
That
trust
makes
that she,
perfect sense.
yeah.
Yep.
So, but from that time, from June of 2020 until November of 2021, so whatever that is, 16, 18 months,
Mhm.
we talked about it every now and then. Not every single time, because even though I wanted to, I just didn't want her dreading for me to call. I mean, she's
Yes.
80 years old at this point. My dad's 85. The fake dad is 80 also. And she and I have had conversations about him and that he needs to know. She agrees. He needs to know. She's not going to tell him.
Right.
Yeah,
That's on you.
yeah, you can tell him if you want, but I'm not going to tell him. I don't have anything to do with him. I'm like, you need to get off the everything is his fault thing, because also it's not his fault. He's a victim in this entire thing.
Yeah.
And she agreed. She totally agrees, but she doesn't want to be the one that has to, you know, do the thing.
Yeah. But at the same time, do you feel like maybe he deserves it?
Oh, right, and she does. She also
I mean,
agrees.
that whole bigamy thing.
Yeah, exactly. She agrees that he deserves to know, but she just doesn't want to be the one to tell him.
Yeah.
And I believe he deserves to know. And my children believe he deserves to know. But other friends and family members, while some of them do believe he does need to know, they think it would just be too painful for him. But my point is, because I've grown up with a mom who, sometimes just to be ornery, she would be untruthful. Um, and I don't tell lies, because as I've said many, many times in my 50 something years, I'm not smart enough to keep them straight. So I know that. Things I know about myself. I'm not all that smart anyway, but I'm certainly not smart enough to keep lies straight. So
Well,
I,
that's a pretty good reason though, because it's true.
yeah,
Liars, that's how we catch people.
that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I would like to tell him, but I also, I don't want to hurt him. But it's not about it. He's there's hurt anyway. She kept me from him,
Mhm.
and sadly, he and I have had a better relationship than he has with his other children. So he ended up going back to that wife, and he has another child who's a year younger than me.
Wow. So that's where we are. You haven't told him yet. Are you biding your time or
I don't. We're going to be in their area sometime next month, and
okay.
I need to do the thing that's, um, and this sounds very weird, I guess, but I need to do the thing with it that is acceptable to my husband as well,
Mhm.
so that I'm not the monster. He's 80 years old. He's in bad health. What necessary? Would I tell him for him, or am I telling him for me?
Right. Yeah.
So.
Oh, this is stuff to think about, huh?
Yeah, it's a tough thing to think about. And I have seen him twice since this. That's not true. I've seen him only once since
Okay.
this discovery. And one one of the the things is, he does love me. I'm his love child. I mean, I really am his love child with his old high school girl.
Mm.
But I'm also just not his.
Yep.
I'm hers.
Yeah.
I'm her child.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that shakes out, and how it, what the right thing is to do. And the thing is, there is no right thing.
Yep. We're sitting. So here we are. He doesn't know. Mom admitted it. You had that short extravaganza with the half sister, but you haven't had any contact with that family since then.
So no, I have.
Okay.
Let me finish off my mom real quick.
Oh,
So
okay.
so just because it'll keep it straight in my head before we
Sure.
go on down the crazy path of all the half sisters. Um, so I said that my mom and I had a pretty good relationship, probably the best of my life, in the time from her saying I always wondered, until until this last November. I went to see her in November, and while I was there, uh, she was just very cold, very unusually cold, colder than she normally is.
Mm.
And I asked her at a point, how she was doing on that journal. And I've not brought it up in over a year. And I asked her how she was doing on that journal, and she said she hadn't done anything. She said, I don't have anything to say.
Mm.
So I pretty well. And I wasn't staying with them that night. I was staying with my sister who lives in that same town. And I stuck around for another 10 or 15 minutes and then I left. I travel a lot and she never calls me like, oh, what time are you getting at so-and-so? And how is your plane doing? And did you get home yet? And where are you? And blah, blah, blah. She never does that. That weekend after I left there, she must have texted or called me 5 times each day. Sometimes I wasn't able to get to them or I got them too late. So I didn't get back to her for a couple of days. And then when I did, I was like, what the heck? You can't write anything in the journal, but you can just keep calling me, keep calling me, keep calling me. So this festered and festered and festered. So about a week after I got home, I called one day and I said, seriously, you can't think of a single thing that you can write down. You can't think of like, what did you guys do together? Did you go to movies or did you go to outside concerts or did you ever meet any of your friends or how did you keep my grandparents from meeting him and all this? But no, she, nothing. She goes, no, I just don't have any memories. That was a really long time ago. I don't remember. Yeah. So I just, from some maybe really mean part of me, I said, well, here's the deal. Until you can come up with something to say, I don't really have anything to say to you. Wow. And so again, she did what she does. She paused for about 10 seconds and she said, okay, and hung up the phone. Oh. That's her line. Yes. Yeah. Now I still had contact, but I don't reach out very often, just once in a blue moon, just to like basically not be a horrible person. I booked their COVID boosters a few days ago for her and dad to go. I'm like, are you going to get these COVID, the second booster shot? And, where are you going to go? Do you want me to make the appointment? And then I nagged them, like, don't forget to take your card. And, it's in 2 hours. Be sure to like be getting together to get over there, so da, 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 da. So I'm still a pretty decent daughter. I'm just not a good daughter.
You're still there. You're still, but yeah. you're hurt.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm astonished at that.
Yeah.
So now I'm talking to her or she's not talking to me mostly, but she tries to, she'll send me a text that asks, like, how's so-and-so doing and how's so-and-so doing and what's your weather like? And you haven't had COVID, have you? So it's just very funny. So I'll get one text with all that in there.
Just like, right.
Yeah. She's trying to like crack me in some way.
Yeah.
But on my biological father's side, so there are these, there were the 5 children he had with his first wife, with his wife. And when I didn't hear back from the one half sister who I'd been having the conversations with in late April and May of 2020, after a while, I thought, you know what? Who is she to tell me I can't contact people? You are not the gatekeeper. You are not the boss of me. You are younger than me and I am smarter than you. And so I'm not, whatever. I said, I've been working on a letter similar to what I sent her, making some corrections and changes to like not be as like,
right.
Letting the time happen, between the knowledge and then I sit down to put my fingers on the keyboard. So in October of 2020, I sent a letter to every one of them. To at this point, there's only 4 of them left. One had passed away. So I easily Googled their addresses and hoped I had the right addresses, and sent them all the same letter. Mm-hmm. Basically, is I believe I am your older half sister, and I mailed it off, and I never heard a thing. So I sent the 3 of them who I had no contact with at all to that point. They all got the exact same one. The one who I had contact with got the same letter with a little handwritten note inside that said, I sent this same letter to so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. And I just wanted you to know.
Right. That's good. And it's good that way everybody has the same information and everybody's on the same page.
Yep. And I also had I had actually did something I haven't done in a long time. I had some photos developed and printed at my local drugstore, and I put 4 or 5. I put 4 or 5 pictures of myself in there, in just little photos. Yeah. So that way, here it is. It's tangible. I put the same ones in everyone in the same order, so everyone would have the very same experience when they opened it. And listen, this is where it goes crazy. A week later, I matched somebody on Ancestry,
Uh-huh.
a half sibling.
Uh-huh.
I knew immediately from the centimorgans that it was a half sibling because remember my maternal half sister had tested,
Right.
and I met this paternal half sister more than I matched my maternal half sister, who I remember being born.
Right.
Ah, she thinks I'm her cousin, so she's writing messages to me going, "Oh, it looks like we match as a first cousin." I'm like, "Oh, so I've just sent off the letter to the other people, and now here's surprise person
Is this
popping
one
up."
of the sisters from the other relationship?
Nope. It,
What?
it's a person who had been placed for adoption.
Oh my god. Okay.
So crazy, so crazy. So so I was an amazing lifeline for her, because she had this was in mid-October of 2020, and she had never ever spoken to, talked to, or even thought about a real person who was related to her
Uh-huh.
other than her imaginary biological parents.
Right.
So it had never ever occurred to her that there could be somebody out there her age.
Yeah.
So she's slightly younger than me. And she um, is not really into, by now I'm like totally immersed in it because I've been doing this for 6 or 7 months. It's
Sure.
been 6 months since I'd made the discovery, da 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 da. And so we connected in a way that I felt like I was the shepherd, and I felt like she was the sheep. She only wanted to know so much, and she was tired. She was overwhelmed,
Yeah.
mentally tired of it. So I had to be very careful, and I felt very protective of her too, because I had always lived on my weird little island of all the things that you can't say and how things can hurt people. And I didn't want to scare her, and I didn't want to tell her about all the bad experiences, or what I felt like had been bad experiences with these other ones, that
Mm-hmm.
I got nothing back from the one, and the others had just recently received that letter from me. But we over the next month or so we talked through it, and it took me a few weeks to actually give her information bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. But she knew some things. She knew she was Middle Eastern.
Okay.
She had been told as a teenager that she was Middle Eastern, and that's why you have hair on your arm, honey. Her adoptive mother told her those things.
Oh my gosh.
It's just very funny. She joined, when she found out, she joined some kind of a school group or a club that had a Middle Eastern ethnicity, a participation of some sort. I don't remember
Oh
what it was.
wow.
So she was actually immersed. She did role playing of some
That's
sort.
amazing.
Yeah, because her
That's
mother was able to share that with her.
good
So
for her
she,
mother and
yeah,
good for her for recognizing that this is her culture and
yeah,
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome. I was so glad for her, and a little jealous.
Yeah.
Uh, but she and I continued to talk, and to do Zoom calls so we could get to know each other. And one of my daughters was going to be vacationing near where this surprise half sister lives, so I was able to organize for us to meet kind of in between where we were going to go meet our daughter on her vacation, and for this half sister to come and meet. So she and I have been able to meet. We met about a year ago, and we just had an afternoon of lunch, drinks, and sitting around with our husbands and talking. And
Oh,
it
that's
was very,
lovely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was very nice. It was very, very nice. But we have figured out that her dad was my dad, and there were some additional questions. And since then, we've been able to determine who her mother is.
Okay.
I have been. She asked me if I would help her write a letter of introduction to the family. Also,
Mm-hmm.
we did that in February of last year, and so we wrote to a different sister because I explained how the one sister had gone non-responsive.
Right.
So we chose a different sister, and so she made contact with her on the phone, and they had they talked 2 or 3 different times, and that sister wanted proof, wanted information, and the newly found sister diverted to me, and she said, or delegated it to me, and said, how about, here's her address, here's her email address, you send the letter to her, and you explain everything before I got involved and how you were able to tell me all the things.
Right.
She said, you send her the letter and just copy me on it. So I sent the letter and said, she's copied on this letter, but she asked me to send you the details of all the research I did and how I found what I found and where we are on all this. That sister, whose name is Anne, wrote back to only the newly found sister, but she identified me as saying, I will be in touch with me, at some point in the future. So we, the newly found sister and I, we actually laugh. I'm like, I don't know when the point in the future is, but she has not contacted me yet.
That's contacted her?
Oh, only one time after that letter came. And it was the same kind of thing. I'm going through a lot right now. I don't really have time for this, essentially meaning I don't have time for you, but I see you, I believe you. But we're still just, blah, 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 blah. But she did give her some medical information. She gave a detailing of how many children there are, how many grandchildren there are. She gave her a little bit more information and different information, not controversially different, but just additional information than what the other one had given me.
I see. Okay.
So that's kind of where we sit. That, we've reached out to two different sisters. One I reached out to when I first found out, and then we reached out to the an additional sister to talk about the newly found. So now that gives me 8 surprised. Wait, is that right? 8?
And
yes,
surprised.
8. Yeah, 8 half paternal half siblings.
Wow.
In addition to the 4 that I grew up with.
Wow.
And then, so the big surprise is I friended that first the first cousin on 23andMe. I sent her a friend request. I just got really wild and bold back last summer, and I sent her a friend request, and she accepted.
Oh.
And every now and then she'll like something or say, that's beautiful on a picture, or Merry Christmas or something to me right on my Facebook page. Mm-hmm. Her mother recently passed away, my aunt, my biological father's sister. And I, for the first time, posted something on her Facebook page. And I just said, my condolences and I'm very sorry for your loss, kind of thing. And not only did she like my comment, I feel like we're in 3rd grade. He looked at me. But she liked my comment, and a couple of her sisters, who would also be my first cousins, they also liked my comment.
Oh, and that's significant, isn't it?
It is. It is crazy. Something that little is important, but it is. Yep. And so between my first opportunity to friend her and now, I have asked her if she has, or if her mom has any information about my biological father, and or about the family, or who I could contact for more information. And so she did give me the name of one of the sisters, and I reached out to her, and we had a Facebook Messenger conversation back in August. And a couple of weeks ago, it was good. It was, like, it's nice to meet you, and yes, I did receive your letter, but we've just had a lot of crazy things in the family, and and I can Facebook look up people as well as anybody else. So I know some of the things that have been going on in the family. But last week or so, recently, I told her that I'm going to be making a trip through her area to go visit my mom. And would she be interested in coffee or lunch or dinner or anything? And she said, yes, I would. I'm so excited.
That's awesome.
So excited. So I gave her, 6-ish weeks notice to say, I'm coming through your town. Mm-hmm. Would you be interested? And then when she said yes, I said, well, I know it's going to be around this week. I'm not sure which, where in that week it would be. What days are best for you? Mm-hmm. So Mondays and Tuesdays are best for her. So we will be there on a Monday and Tuesday.
That's great. I hope she brings pictures.
I hope she brings pictures too.
Yeah. Because have you seen more than just the high school picture?
No, because he was living in the Middle East. I've seen his college pictures, and I've also seen some pictures that are no longer available, just so you know, that are no in the public venue. But I was able to find some pictures after I first found him. Okay. I was able to find some pictures. Yeah. Yeah. So, but they're older pictures, obviously, like more recent pictures of him as an older man, and a lot of the family and that kind of thing. So I feel like I really know them, but it's just because I've researched them.
Yes, it's because you've done your due diligence. Yeah.
They should be able to research me and mine. And I'm very particular on how I put things on Facebook now too. There are sometimes that I will post something public intentionally, so that they can see something. It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like product placement.
Yeah, exactly is that. But it's been a wild ride for 2 years. It's been a 2-year absolute, the rug was pulled out from under me, but it felt good. I didn't need that rug. It was the wrong rug. And now the right rug fits really well.
Yeah.
To honestly sum all of it up, I feel really bad about the fake dad not knowing the truth, but it's a delicate situation. Is it going to do any good? Is it going to do harm? I've got to continue to weigh that, but
Yep.
I will probably be seeing him next month also, and I'll make the decision perhaps at the spur of the moment, or if the opportunity arises. I would feel better about him knowing my husband is a really smart man, and he's a man, and
Right.
maybe and how it could crush him, and is that fair to do to a 81-year-old man when it doesn't really make much of a difference. We've already decided, I have not actually written the letter, but we've already decided that, should I end up in his will, we will simply just reject that. I can figure out how to do the renunciation on that. I've actually already consulted with an attorney in that state to have that ready to go if that would be a situation. So, I don't want anything that's not mine. And
Right. That's actually, that is a good reason to tell him too, actually, so that you don't have to do that.
well, there you go. I'll use that as a little bit of leverage, perhaps with my husband.
Yeah.
Because
I never even thought about that, but that's a good
Yeah.
point. That's a good point.
yeah,
Wow.
but
Well, keep me posted.
I will.
As things progress, and maybe the other sisters will come around, because we do know that time is on our side, even though we're very impatient people. It's amazing what time does for people.
Yes. And my impatience is, I guess it's normal to be impatient. I just want to jump right in and meet them and have them know me, but I get where their suspicion and their reluctance comes in, and I'm still here waiting, and that's pretty much my message
Yep.
to them in any future conversation. So I've been patient, and I think maybe it's going to pay off a little bit with the meeting that is tentatively scheduled for next month.
All right. Cynthia, thank you again for sharing. I so appreciate it. All right, Cynthia, thank you once again so much for sharing your story with us. Wow, isn't it amazing how different they all are? But it's still fascinating. Love doing this. Hey guys, I hope you have a great holiday weekend. We will be back with season 6. Wow, season 6 in the next couple weeks. In the meantime, please reach out to me if you would like help at cutoffjeans.com. And what else? If you would like to share your story on the show, also reach out to me. I love it when you guys do that. And anything else, don't forget to participate in the conversation on the Facebook page and the Facebook group, and also follow us on the Twitter and, all the socials. Be good to yourselves, vote, and the truth is in your jeans.